Today we're reviewing the Laowa CF 8-16mm f3.5-5 Dreamer. Come on, a wide lens for your APS-C sensor or your crop sensor or your DX sensor. They're all the same, and today we're going to get into it. What's cracking? I'm Ralph, and thanks for joining me. Comes in this lovely little box, and once you get rid of the insert, you can get rid of the lid. It is a dead set beauty, as you can see. Comes in this nice beautiful foam insert. Here is the lens. There's the size of my hand. My hand is above average size, so you can see how it just fits nicely in the palm. Got a bit of a shake there. What's going on? Goodness gracious. I have the nice little lens cap. Let's take the lens cap off. A bit of a screw. It's metal. And there is the lens element for you to enjoy. Ooh, so sweet. This is a manual lens, so it means you have to manually focus. The aperture is manual, and obviously the focal length is manual. So it starts at 16, and we can click it through to 3.5. Now obviously 3.5 changes as the lens goes from wide to not so wide. So at 16mm you're at 3.5 aperture, and as you go to 8mm you turn to 5 aperture, but this will automatically sync. When you look through your camera it will say f dash dash. It doesn't give you the information on your readout because it's a manual lens, which means you have to keep an eye on what this is doing. You have little clicks, but you can turn those clicks off if you want to experiment with video or you want to pick up an aperture length that's in between, so that's nice and smooth. I prefer the clicks. Then we have our focal length, and so that's 8mm, 9mm, 10, 12, 14 and 16, and I'll show you exactly what that does later on. Then we have our focusing in, so when things are a long way away, and to be honest I reckon like 20 meters or more away, you can go on your infinity rating and you'll see there's not a lot of scope there for focusing in, so you need to just be aware of that. Let's have a look at the bottom of the lens. Pop this off, and we have a lack of electronics because, as I said, it's not an automatic lens. And this mount goes not only on the Nikon Z mount, but Sony E, Fuji X, Canon RF, and Canon EF-M. So you've got a massive range of options for whichever camera you have. Put the cap back on. It's a total weight of 463 grams with a metal finish and very easy to use. The other thing to note is you have this filter ring that you can pop on just by turning and securing, and this is 86mm, so it means you can easily apply a circular filter to this to mean your wide lens that otherwise wouldn't be able to accommodate a filter can accommodate your filter sets. You do need to be careful that as you would build out lenses and filters in this direction, you would limit the focal capacity of this. This gives you 120 degrees all the way down to 86 degrees. It's the equivalent of a 12mm all the way up to a 24mm on a full frame camera. So you're really getting wide. And what we're wondering is, well, what's the quality of that? Well, if you stick around, I'll show you. So Laowa sent me this lens and said, can you review it and send it back? I know, but it's the first lens I've ever been sent, so I was very, very excited that they would trust me with it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the review as well as the lens, if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, just don't waste your time. Just like, subscribe, and get all that gear done. The moment you pick this lens up, it feels nice. It has a nice weight. It's sleek. It's epic. It's metal. It smells. There's no smell to it. It's good. It doesn't smell. And, oh, it puts on your camera, well, and it feels nice. It feels well weighted. You can rest that in your hand and you can shoot super wide on it. So the other night I went to the city, I took some shots, I had to play with it, and I discovered a couple of things. First of all, I discovered that because you don't get an aperture reading on the back of your camera, it just says f dash dash. You have to look actually where it is, which is fine, but when it's dark you need an extra torch. So I used my phone to see what it actually said and what it was doing. Likewise with the focal range, I found, because maybe my eyes as a dodge, but I had to go the zoom in, the mega zoom in, and then tweak with this. But I found a lot of what I was shooting, because it was a long way away, the subject was more than 20 meters away, which isn't a long way, but it meant I could actually set it on infinity and it was fine. The focus picked up really well. I also found though I could go really close. So this focus is up to 20 centimeters away. So I can focus on my face now and it will get me in focus. A lot of lenses actually require 30 or plus, and that's why Laowa's their creative endeavors into developing lenses that kind of sit outside of the norm of a lot of lenses. And so if you're looking for a unique lens, especially a wide lens that will do a lot of different things, so we'll shoot at 16 mil as well as 8 mil. So that's a massive range from super wide to actually quite reasonable and 24. And you could even do some creative vlogging with this. I would recommend not vlogging like face to camera, because your face will look a bit weird. It'll look like really popped and a little bit like this. Yeah, nobody wants that. But you can use it for some really epic video stuff, and because of its close focal length, and you can put its aperture down to 3.5, you can get some really cool close-up stuff and blurry background, which comes up really nice. It has 5 aperture blades that creates these beautiful and epic 10-point sun stars or light stars, and so you can see here they look really sharp, really nice. The Laowa CF 8-16mm f3.5-5 Dreamer is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But it has 16 elements in 12 groups, and 2 are spherical elements and 2 extra low dispersion elements. And that means you get great quality in the corners, you get clearer images, and you get less, what's that word? It'll come to me. It'll come to me. Chromatic aberration. Yeah. You'll get less chromatic aberration. Thanks for joining me. There's no telephoto, so as you twist and you move, the lens stays. It means the lenses inside are moving like this, rather than the whole lens having to move like that to keep it in focus. And it's so small. It's the smallest wide-angle lens I've ever seen with no fisheye. Now, $549 US straight from the website of Laowa. This is a cracker of a lens. It's a great deal. It enables you to get super wide. And so if you're a landscape photographer, you do a lot of architecture, you do some interesting street photography, or you want to just take some creative images, as I was mucking about with last night, then this is a lens well worth your exploration and investigation as to whether you should buy it, because it's really reasonably priced. And at an aperture of 3.5, I think it more than will satisfy the needs that you have for this particular lens, given how wide it is and what it can do. So let's get out into the field. Let's test for some vignetting, let's test for some warping, and let's test for clarity in the corners and the quality of photographs you can capture with the lens. So we start at 16mm, which is the equivalent to 24. It's pretty standard, honestly, with the camera. But then look how wide this goes as we just pull back, and you can see everything that's captured in this frame. I was super impressed by how wide it is. So here we are, I've pulled them up. If I just go and auto edit on that, look at those starbursts. You know, we were talking about the starburst. Look at the difference that makes. And you'll note on the metadata, it hasn't got your aperture length or your focal length. It just has your exposure length, which you can control, and your ISO, which you can control on the body. The others are manual. So that makes it interesting for the next little bit, doesn't it? So I know this was shot on a really narrow aperture, so it's really clear in the foreground. That is about 20 centimeters away, and it gets blurry as we go in the back. Now, when taking this, I chose to take an architectural kind of landscape shot. And the reason I did that is because I needed something broad enough for us to explore the corners. With those type of shots, you would never take a 3.5 aperture shot, because the focal length is so narrow. And what that means is the very thing that you focus on is sharp and everything else is blurry. It's one of the challenges and the beauties of a really low aperture. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this up at f9, and we're going to have a look at the corners. Then we're going to jump out to f16 and have a look in the corners and see the general sharpness of the photograph. This is f9 at 8mm, and you'll see it's really sharp and clear there, zoomed into 100. But if we go down to the corners, have a look, see that gets really mushy. That whole area gets really mushy. It may be because it's out of focus, but there it's blurry as well, and that window and the wall is a bit blurry. But if we go down, you see there's a little bit of blur there, and then it builds much as we go down into the grass thing. So let's go to the 12mm and see how it performs in the corners. So 12mm is not too bad. That is a bit blurry there, but that's nice and sharp. Again, a bit blurry. Let's go back across to here. It's nice and clear and sharp in the middle, and it starts to get blurry here. You see it's just losing its clarity. So it's one of the challenges with any wide lens. It gets blurry in the corners, and so at least this way you can zoom in and see exactly what you can expect. Now let's go to 16mm, and 16mm is nice and sharp there. 16mm is nice and sharp in the corners, I reckon. Yep, I'd pay that. Although you see that's really sharp and then it starts to fade there. Aperture of 9, it might be partly aperture, because as things get to the corners they move further away from the center of the lens. That line looks pretty straight. Get to that in a sec. Let's now go to f16 and see how we look in the corners. So we'll zoom into 100% and we'll go to the corners, and it's slightly, but it's pretty good. Like there's a little bit of wind, obviously. Let's go right down to the bottom here. You can see, so a slight blurriness compared to here, but generally that's pretty good. You honestly wouldn't really notice it, to be honest, if you were shooting at f16. So the higher your aperture, the larger your focal length, your depth of field, and therefore the better quality you should get. Also at 16, you're probably operating just outside the sweet spot of the lens. The sweet spot of the lens might be between f7 and f11. They usually sit somewhere in the middle. Now let's go to 12mm, so that zooms in a little bit, nice and sharp in the middle. If we go up to the sides, yeah, see, that's pretty clear there, pretty sharp. As it gets up here, it gets a bit blurry. Well, obviously less blurry and less mushy, but there's still a little bit. That's not actually too bad. That's pretty good. All right, let's go to 16mm. That'll zoom us right in. That's a bit of leaf movement, but that looks pretty good. Yeah, so when it shoots at, say, 16mm, it's pretty sharp in the corners. And as you get wider, it gets a bit mushy in the corners. We are nitpicking, or what's called pixel peeping, but it's important for you to know what is out there and what is happening. All right, let's now look at vignetting. So I shot up at the sky. This is at 3.5, and what we're looking for is it dark in the corners. And the best way to do this, I think, is to increase the exposure. And as we increase the exposure, I actually think that's not too bad. The reason I think that is, here's the sun. It was like high in the sky. And so that means everything is going to be like bright here and then gradually darkening. But there doesn't seem to be excessive darkening. This is close to the land. I actually think that's okay. All right, let's go to f9 on super wide. Let's bring up the exposure. That way we bring up the exposure just so we can see the darker areas easily. And again, that seems to be mirroring that pattern, and it doesn't look like it's quite excessive. That's good. And then we'll go to f16, and I'm going to increase the exposure on that so you'll get to see. These are little specks of tiny dust that the direct sunlight picks up. It's called lens flare. It's just what happens when you use a lens. But that's pretty good on the vignetting, I reckon. Yep, no, passed for me on the vignetting. Now let's go back to last night when I went out. I took a shot of a fence. This is the fence I shot at 8mm, and I made sure my camera was perfectly central, so it was leveled on both axes, and I took a shot of this fence. So what I want to do now is just zoom in and see if this line bows away. Have a look at that. Doesn't feel like it bows at all. That's remarkable. Have a look at that, guys. I can't zoom in on it, but look at that line. And actually, I think that's because the fence wasn't straight. That line there. There's a tiny bit of a bow. You see the gap here and the gap here. But my goodness, that's on the widest it'll go. That's 8mm. Now let's go to 12mm. And you'd expect to see less bow or less warping. There's no warping. That's amazing. And that's really pushed in at 16mm. That's crazy. No warping at all. That's remarkable for a lens of this size and this capability. This is a photograph I took last night. Just thought I'd pull it out, and just these haven't been edited and they're raw. That's why the color's not banging. But if we go down to here, gee, and you see the blurriness in the corners? It really is actually fine. And I shot this on an f16, so I shot this on the highest aperture because I wanted to create the longest exposure as I could to get these cars as they zoom past, so I could layer that photo together to look like this. Boom. Okay, so honestly, as I look through my other images that are real world images that went on talk, I don't have a problem with the corners. Like, I know my test revealed that there was some mushiness and softness, but as I look at my general images, I'm stoked with them. And the challenge of manual focusing, it was good to get back to that. I do use manual focus for, every so often when I want to get really specific on something, but generally allow the autofocus to take care of it. So it was good to be forced to get back into the rhythm of using a manual focus. I put this lens on the Nikon Z-F-C. I was going to put it on my Nikon Z50, but I lent that to someone who's learning photography. So go James. But while he's learning photography, I decided to stick this on my Nikon Z-F-C. And there it is. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put it on a full frame camera and just show you what you get from starting at 16mm and working all the way back to 8mm, just so well, that can be satisfied if you're wondering what happens there. So there it is, guys. You know, whether you want to buy it or investigate or have a look into it, have a look in the link in the description below. There will take you straight to their website. It's well worth buying it from their website because they have excellent customer service. It's really prompt and on time. You also get a really good deal and you get to see what other lenses, because they got some really creative lenses, and I'm pretty excited to partner with them and hopefully do some more reviews into the future, providing you liked this one. And it went off. But that remains to be seen, does it not? Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. It's so hot and sweaty. Oh my gosh, it's like 40 degrees out. My Ember cup, new Ember cup. Got it like secondhand off Marketplace, and oh, it's held it at 62 degrees for the entire filming of this, and it's been a long filming because I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm waiting for my audio recorder to catch up as we do this. So, yeah. Good on you, Ember. Top work. Today we are reviewing the Laowa CF 8-16mm 5. Today we're reviewing the Laowa. Today we're reviewing the Laowa. Today we're reviewing the Laowa CF. Wow, don't know if we're ever going to get this video done.